Happy Easter, everybody. It is actually the night before Easter, but for all of you out there celebrating, no matter what your religion is, just know that you're loved and that we're all blessed. Yeah, so it's been a while. I wanted to actually shoot a quick video. I'm out for a little drive here, and I want to shoot this video about AI. I just want to talk to you about what I've been looking at over the last few months here, how this plays into kind of the overall AI narrative, that I've been looking at for probably well over a decade or more, on and off. But things have really started to heat up in the last few months, and so I'll just break it down how I see it, what I'll be looking for in the coming months, and especially this year. And yeah, let's go from there. So there'll probably be a couple of terms, a couple of phrases, terminologies, timelines, etc. that we'll talk about. But let's get into it. I am not a expert by any means at this. I'm just someone that's been very passionate about exponential technologies. I've been following kind of thought leaders and futurists like Peter Diamandis, Ray Kurzweil for well over a decade, and I've mentioned their names to you. They have founded Singularity University. And so let's get into it. So unless maybe you're not familiar, or maybe you just don't focus on this stuff, what has been going on in just the last 6 months in AI has really been truly remarkable, not just to me, and I'm just, I'm not somebody that builds this stuff, I'm not a coder, I understand, small amounts peripherally, but, I've also been noticing that even some of the, leaders and the builders of this technology have been blown away by what we have. So let's talk about some of the major things. So what we're really talking about in the last several months, I apologize for the video and the shakiness. I'm just kind of an amateur when it comes to this. I do know that there probably are editing softwares out there using AI that can take away all the shakiness and blurriness and make the sound quality absolutely tremendous. I may or may not, but I probably won't get around to doing any of that at this point. But all right, so without further ado, we're talking about large language models, LLM. And so these are things like ChatGPT, which ChatGPT is a company, the product put out by OpenAI. Sam Altman is the CEO. You may know him. He was also, head of Y Combinator years ago. And OpenAI was, originally started as a nonprofit, backed by people like Elon Musk and others. Now they do have a small for-profit, arm, but they put this product out. They had some other iterations before, but it wasn't available, to us in this user interface. But ChatGPT uses the GPT 3.5. You can use it. They then 6 months later came out with GPT 4, which, if you've used this, it is light years. Well, I don't know about light years, but is a lot better, a lot more accurate. Just pretty remarkable capabilities and things that it can do. And Microsoft decided that they were going to, work with OpenAI, invest, billions of dollars, and incorporate that into their Bing search. Why is this a big deal? And what is large language model? Let's tackle the second. So a large language model, think of it like, when you type into your Google search, and it kind of predicts like your next word or your next letter that you're about to type. These large language models essentially do that. They're using, it's a prediction model, and it just statistically, what is the next word? What is the next, phrase? What is the next sentence? And it takes all this, and it's able to build these kind of connections, or these neural, network connections. And over time, it gets trained on this data, and it also has what's called, I won't get into the technicalities, but human beings can give feedback to say yes or no, or hey, this was good or this was bad. So it's constantly being trained on itself. That is GPT as we know it. There are other companies, some of the top AI guys out there, like one, Dr. Alan Thompson, has got a YouTube channel. He broke it down. He thinks there's probably about maybe 6 or so companies out there that are kind of leading the charge when it comes to AI. Some of them we know. OpenAI, we've got Google with Bard. Google also has another more advanced language model, POMCHAIN. They'll be probably releasing sometime soon. We've got Meta, Facebook, right, which is has some pretty interesting stuff, especially with what they're doing with segmentation of pictures for their future models. We have, I won't go into them all, but anyways, there's a few of them out there, and then there's a lot of others out there. Now, these are just large language models, and so right now, ChatGPT is mostly using text as its modality or its input, but we're going to soon start to see in these models, future models, and there are models out there that do this as well, that are not only going to rely just on text, so like a chatbot, but you'll be able to, you'll have other modalities like text, voice, and video. So when you combine all these, you could start to see some really interesting things. All right, so that's large language models. These are going to continually be trained. The thought is, well, do you train them on like lots and lots and lots of data? And the more data that you train them on, they call them parameters. Maybe the better and better it will be. That's kind of the theory. However, there are some other interesting studies that are going on, especially Stanford and a few others. They've shown like with like less than a few $100s or $30 or $600 that they were able to actually train models that are nearly maybe as good as, say, ChatGPT with much, much less data. So that just shows, what may and is already possible. And this is all just kind of hitting really quickly. So where do we go from here? Well, these future models are going to be continuing to be trained. There is likely to be, some competition by those private companies, also like UK, Brit GPT. There's going to be some other models that come out. There's obviously maybe going to be some alarm by governments or regulatory bodies. But for now, it just seems like whoever can get this stuff out to market first, that's where we are going to go with this. ChatGPT is with GPT-4 probably the leader currently, and I think all the others are maybe having to catch up. What I think are two fascinating things. The rumor is that GPT-5 is currently being trained and will likely be finished training by the end of this year, so December. So Merry Christmas. Now, I'm not saying I don't know if it's going to be released to the public at that point, but this could be even more magnitudes greater than GPT-4, which was be just a lot to take in just a short period of time. Also, GPT-4 has already announced, and they will have, some people have access to it already, plugins, which I just think is going to be very interesting, where you're able to connect ChatGPT or GPT-4 to plugins like other sites. Think of the apps on your app store, and hey, do this, or book me this flight, or use the put me together a recipe and order it. Ooh, I just dropped my phone. Hey, So, all right, so plugins, and perhaps one of the most interesting developments is how do you combine this with the real world and robotics? So think of not just ChatGPT where you're typing, or you're using other modalities on a computer. What about if this gets into an actual physical robot, and the robot can now sense the real world around us and can actually do tasks? And so OpenAI has I think a partnership, I don't know what their exact arrangement is, but with a company was it X1 or 1X? It's one of those. I got it confused with the Zen Layer 1 blockchain. So, anyways, let's, whatever it is, it's a 1 and an X. And they have a robot, and I guess that they are training this on GPT-4. And so think of it, if it has these modalities where it can actually recognize things in its, voices and images and movement and text as its inputs, you know, could it potentially start to do things around us, you know, as its robotic capabilities become more and more, you know, human-like or better. So that's that. What else is there to say about that? Yeah, that, I'll leave it at that for now. Those are large language models. Now, the whole idea is, in the grand scope of things, is will we ever create a computer that achieves human-level consciousness? Well, some would say yes, some would argue no, some would say, well, if we do, how would we ever know? But the reality is, some people are starting to think that, and I don't think they thought that the large language model approach would be getting us as far as we are. And some are starting to think that we're starting to maybe see glimpses of AGI. And so, this is interesting. Now, already, I'll go back to the large language models. There's other approaches in terms of how we might achieve, you know, AGI. Large language models is just, you know, one approach, but it's obviously moving very, very quickly. And this is the one that most of us are kind of using, you know, probably on a, if you are using it or you're hearing about it on a daily basis or a near daily basis. So, I found it very interesting. I've been watching like some of these hackers, just like, you know, regular people. Some of them don't even know how to code, that are playing around with this technology. And, you know, some are just putting it out there on Twitter, on YouTube, sharing what they've... So there's a few things like this, just in the last few days, week, there's a program that somebody has, Auto GPT. What they're basically doing is they connected like multiple GPT-4s, if you will, and they say, okay, I want you, GPT, to be, you know, I don't know, be an expert, and you are, you know, my accountant, or you are my, you know, whatever. And now I want you to solve here's what we want to do, right? Make the world a better place, or do whatever you want to do, or make me more money. And GPT will actually go out, frame the, you know, what's the problem? Here's the possible solutions, prioritize the next task, and then keep reiterating and just keep building and building and improving on itself, and it won't stop until it, so, and it can actually catch itself, like if it doesn't feel like it solved its own, you know, problems, it'll just keep going and going and going and going, kind of like that Energizer bunny back in the day, you know, going and going. So this is quite interesting because this is just like in the last week, and I'm not even a coder, and I'm following along somewhat, you know, with how they were able to do this just by telling it and speaking. You know, I've seen other videos where a guy literally is speaking into a computer. The computer creates whatever program or app, runs it, and automatically just by speaking. Very interesting. So, you know, and on GitHub, some of these repositories, you know, are actually, you know, trending in the top, you know, 3, top 5, top 10. So that's interesting. Also, you've got these things like Hugging, right? Hugging GPT. Well, what is it? It sounds to me like what this does is it's connecting many large language models. So not just, say, multiple GPT-4s, right? But other other models that might rely on, you know, let's say, or I'm going to take this out because it is a little shaky. You know, other language models, let's say like, you know, like other modalities, and then having, it's kind of like, it seems to me like, let's say if you're just feeding in from all these different language models, you know, okay, this could possibly, these approaches, and I've even seen, you know, read from some others that are in the field, that this possibly could be the next iteration of where we go from here with all of this, because not just will it be one input that you type in and then another, you know, then it gives you the output, but now you're literally getting, you know, multiple inputs from multiple different types of language models interacting, you know, and then an output comes, and Hugging GPT will actually tell you, hey, here's what we did, here's what we, you know, spat out, and here's the language, and here's the models that I used, if you will, to get to that answer. So, yeah, so, all right, so that's that. Pretty interesting stuff. So, for me, I'm always on the lookout of, well, what can I do? And this is just, we're just talking a lot about this chat stuff, but I mean, there's a lot going on with images, videos, voice, you name it. And there's a lot going, I'm thinking about, well, what can I do? How can I maybe use this, for in my own life, or how can I use this for this to go out and do things, say for me or for us that I can share here on the channel, or so that we can benefit to be more productive, or that we can make money, or we can automate processes. So I definitely think this stuff is out there. If I'm just being realistic with myself, I'm not, I'm not fully into this, per se, but I did mention that I've been looking at this, now for, a month or two, and I definitely am starting to see some pretty interesting things. I'm very interested in the fact that somebody like me that doesn't code, or maybe doesn't want to code, or doesn't have the time to learn to code, but maybe just, a little crash course here and there, I might be able to figure out a few things that could really be beneficial. So I'm going to stay, stay tuned to that. But part of me is like, hey, it seems like if you just kind of stay with it and see what's out there, stay in the know, follow the conversation, what's going to be out in 2 or 3 months, if I'm already looking for it, maybe there'll be something out there. So, I dabble with it here and there, but I'm not fully immersed, and more so, I just feel like, maybe if I just wait another few months, and just keep watching, there'll be even more remarkable things out there. But I definitely want to be more aware of what is out there. In terms of, long-term stuff, do I think that this is going to replace and take jobs? Yeah, I do. Do I think that it's a bad thing? It could be for some. Do I think it's going to be beneficial for some? Absolutely. I think some people are going to get absolutely wealthy, and some are just going to get wrecked. And it's becoming more clear. It seems like on a bell curve, like the people that are, say, all manual labor on this side, and all like knowledge worker, like specialized doctors, blah blah blah, on this side, maybe are going to be okay for a while, especially ones that are closest to like that human touch. But I think that a lot of folks in the middle, there's already, I can see, stuff is going to either be replaced. They're not going to need you, or they're going to need you less. And so, are you going to be someone that is using these tools to make yourself or your company more profitable, more productive? Or are you just going to be like the Dunder Mifflin guy, that just sits there and nobody knows why he's really there, but he's still got a job? I think it's going to be a transition. Just because these technologies are out doesn't mean that it's all going to happen at once, and doesn't mean that everybody's going to adopt them all at once, right? It's usually a process, and, it could take a lot longer. Like these things could come out and the early adopters can use them, but, it could take years, several years, for this to really have an impact on a greater society as a whole. So I don't know. But, I don't think there's nothing to worry about. This stuff is either going to raise humanity to a great, great, great place, or it's going to bring about some pain and destruction. And, at the end of the day, this is why, again, tomorrow's Easter. No matter what you believe, there's way more important things and more powerful things than you and I and our own intellect and money and all this stuff. And so, at the end of the day, where do you put your trust? Where do you find your hope? And so I'll leave it at that. But anyways, have a great day. Maybe we'll come back. We'll shoot some other videos about some other topics in the near future. But in the meantime, everybody stay blessed. Love y'all. Peace.